What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Wolfcrier here, and let's talk about what I hope the Diablo 4 team can learn from Diablo 2 Resurrected. This video is more about what makes Diablo 2 Resurrected successful, and not so much about the launch issues that D2R has faced and continues to face. Those issues absolutely do need to be addressed, and obviously, Diablo 4 cannot launch in an even remotely similar state. But instead, let's talk about some lessons that the team can learn from Diablo 2 and, in turn, D2R. Please keep in mind that none of this is meant to be negative towards Diablo 3, but rather the differences that the two have, and in my personal opinion, believe that Diablo 2 handled quite a bit better. Alright, so first off, I am absolutely hooked on Diablo 2 Resurrected and find myself playing a lot more than I previously thought I would be. Those of you who have come to know me through my years of making content on YouTube know of my love for Diablo 3 and the Diablo franchise as a whole. This love started with Diablo 2 way back in my younger days. I would play countless hours of D2 with my brother and some friends, and it was my favorite game for quite a long time. There are so many aspects of the game that make it worthwhile for me to play, and I hope that the team working on Diablo 4 take notice of why the game is so successful and continues to be played 20 years after its initial release. The addition of ethereal items in Diablo 3 during Season 24 brought a bit of that hype back for me at the start of the season. Finally, a chase item that wasn't just handed to me shortly after reaching level 70. The loot chase was back on in this loot finding game. A feeling I hadn't felt in such a long time in Diablo 3 washed over me during those initial few weeks of the season. It was no longer just about farming Paragon or merely finding the right Greater Rift layout, the right mobs, and the right pylons to push my progress further. I also had a brand new quest to find the right weapon to finally complete my build. Something worth looking for, a holy grail of sorts. Unfortunately for me, that chase was over a bit too quickly, and yes, I know I could have held out longer and tried to find a better version of that weapon, and I did that several times in fact, but the feeling wasn't the same. I had once again already found everything I needed within the first 3 or 4 weeks of a season, at which point it became that Paragon farm that Diablo 3 tends to devolve into. I love Diablo 3, but I've played it thousands of hours. I return every season, and it is fun for me to play with my friends in a game that I still enjoy, but that loot chase that I long for just isn't there. I can play less than 4 weeks of a new season and find everything I need for my character during that time. On the other hand, I can play hundreds, if not thousands of hours in Diablo 2 and still not find every piece of gear that I personally desire for my character without a massive amount of luck. Now, I'm not saying I wouldn't settle for somewhere in between, but wouldn't it be great to have that loot chase in Diablo 4? The feeling of finally getting your character to max level 99 in Diablo 2 is so much more exhilarating than reaching 1000 or even 2000 Paragon in Diablo 3. It gives you a sense of achievement that I think gets lost within the Paragon grind that D3 has. I mean, sure, getting to 1K Paragon feels great, but that feeling is almost immediately replaced with, okay, so now on to 2K, etc., etc. There's no end, no goal to achieve because you can always move the goalposts. I'd rather have that feeling of success because it was a challenging grind to get to level 99 than that fleeting feeling that you get when you reach certain Paragon levels. I fully get why Paragon was added and why it was needed, with the combination of Loot 2.0, which increased loot drops and increased the value of sets and uniques, along with the ease of reaching the game's max level of 70. There was nothing left to do except create yet another leveling system, a redundancy which could have been avoided by making the leveling process more challenging and focusing the game around content rather than an arbitrary leveling system. I've played Diablo 3 since launch, and even though it is very different from Diablo 2 in many ways, I enjoy my time with it. There are those out there with a multitude of opinions on the game, which is absolutely fine, but I personally have had a pretty great time playing it. But that's not to say that I think the game is perfect. Newsflash, I haven't found a perfect game in my entire time playing video games. There are some issues I personally have with certain aspects of the game, obviously, or this video would have never been made. I think the biggest problem I have with Diablo 3 is how it negates the entire game with its own endgame systems. What do I mean by this? Well, Diablo 3 has more content than Diablo 2. It just doesn't seem that way because during a season in Diablo 3, you don't have any reason to interact with 90% of the content in the game outside of doing bounties. There is absolutely no reason to play the content. In Diablo 2, the game is the content. You can farm certain areas, certain unique mobs, certain bosses, and you can do it however you want. You can choose to do the same thing over and over and over again, or you can choose to farm multiple bosses or areas in a single game, or somewhere in between. Diablo 3 actually rewards you for skipping the game entirely and just farming rifts. Nephilim rifts for keys and materials, followed by greater rifts for experience and drops. Farming bosses in Diablo 3 is not only a fruitless endeavor, since you can easily farm gear in rifts infinitely faster, it would actually slow down your progress, meaning that killing Diablo in a Diablo game is actually not advised, nor is killing Malthael, the boss added in the expansion to D3. The only times that killing those two bosses is done is during bounties to gain bounty materials. And sometimes they are even skipped during those because the cutscenes are longer than the actual fight. They, along with every other campaign boss, offer no meaningful experience and minimal, if any, loot. Now, this wasn't always the case, and in the days before the addition of rifts in Reaper of Souls, playing the game itself was the way that you actually progressed. But since that time, the game itself has been completely negated. All that content just sits there. Diablo 4 can't do this. So there we have it, ladies and gents, the most important lessons that can be learned from Diablo 2 Resurrected. Now, there is a bit of silver lining when it comes to the future of the franchise if we look at the progress of Diablo Immortal, which does actually start to address some of these issues, but unfortunately doubles down on some of them as well. But that's another video. But all right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for taking the time out of your day to watch this video. I always greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and let me know your thoughts down in that comment section below. All right, ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you, and you all have a fantastic day. Peace.